Welcome back to another episode of Teaching Music Tomorrow. My name is Ann Molesky. I'm here with my good friend Victoria Bowler, and we have a fast and furious episode for you all about play parties. What do you have to say about it, V?
Yeah, so our original thought with this podcast was that we were going to keep things kind of concise. And as these things go, we just get excited and we start, talking about everything under the sun. And as much as, we like talking to each other, that's something we can do on our own time. So try not to ramble too much. And we get to talk about play parties today.
We do.
Okay, so maybe we'll set the context of a play party, because this is something that I struggle with this terminology a lot. If I'm going to write in a lesson plan, like sing and do the play, or sing and do the game, or sing and do the movement. Like, what do you call the verb of doing a play party, right? Yeah. So so just to set it in like a context very quickly, there was a time in American history where the Protestant Christian church had kind of outlawed playing instruments and dancing. And those are considered like not good things for like upstanding moral people to do. And so the young people who would have traditionally been doing their like square dances and all this stuff with like a collar calling out what to do and when to go where, and you have like the fiddle playing, they needed a way to still have fun and still have their community time together. But in order to kind of get around those restrictive rules from the church, they kind of used a collection of singing game movements, like children's singing game movements, and kind of like some dancey kind of stuff, and used the singing game idea. And that's how our play parties developed. So if anyone said like, hey, is this a dance? They would be like, no, it's a play. And I watched an interview with Jean Ritchie recently, and she talked about going to do the singing plays, and just like her experience and her mom's experience of the church being like, you're not allowed to play cards, you're not allowed to play the fiddle, you're not allowed to dance, and then after a while it's like, oh, it's fine, like, it'll be okay, and it goes back, and then someone new comes around, like a new preacher comes to town, they're like, what is this? No, we gotta tighten it up, shut it down, So what's your experience with, I don't know, and any of that, like just play parties as a historical genre?
No, and I remember all of that being discussed like I am not like the folk materials teacher in Kodai training, but in my own Kodai training, like I remember that being a really big discussion, like what's the difference between a game and a play party and something that's movement, particularly because we're having these episodes, kind of those three segmented, if you will. They all feel like game-like activities, right? Like To the kids, they're all games. The thing that stuck out to me the most about play parties in those conversations in my training was about how you couldn't go like to the dance, but or like for a night out, but if you did, it was to like these play parties where you could have a lot of different partners and get to know, somebody that you might be sweet on, in a way that was non-threatening and all good, according to the powers. I don't know. So that was the thing that really stuck in my mind, like the fact that it was okay to dance and it was okay to have a lot of different parties because it was in this play party, partners rather. It was okay because it was in this play party context. So.
Yeah, that's great. Do you want to kick us off with a, like maybe if we're thinking kind of lower elementary, because this sounds like a lot. You're talking about like switching partners, and you're talking about like people moving around, and it sounds kind of complicated. So maybe you can kick us off with something that we might see as like a preparatory play party, if you want to think about it that way. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Do you want me to share my activity, or are you asking me to come up with something different?
No. Activity. the way things normally go is like you skew a little bit.
No, that's fair.
Primary
that's
elementary.
Fair. Well,
but I don't want to put words in your mouth, and you do whatever
please
it is.
Do. Those are words that I've put in my own mouth. It's fine. So here are the things. Mine is Old Brass Wagon, which I think everybody knows. And the reason why Old Brass Wagon can be exactly what you say is because it can be as simple or as complex as you make it, right? Because there is like the promenade all, and there is like the swing your partner and all of that kind of stuff that requires like specific spacing skills and specific like turn this way and then have your partner face the other way, and then your body awareness and the other people who are swinging and all these kinds of things. But it can also be everybody hold hands and circle to the left, circle to the right. So if you aren't familiar with Old Brass Wagon, it goes just like this. circle to the left, old brass wagon, circle to the left, old brass wagon, circle to the left, old brass wagon, you're the one, my darling. And then adapting that whichever way you might adapt it, right? So as soon as students are able to stand in a circle, I would start this. So maybe in kindergarten, we do old brass wagon and we do circle to the left, circle to the right, and that's all that we do. Or jump in place, the old brass wagon, jump in place. How else can we move, Victoria?
Oh, we could do heel and toe.
Yeah, heel and toe, the old brass wagon. Yeah, and we come up with like lots of different movement ideas. Maybe the next step is move to the center, old brass wagon, move to the center, or whatever you want the words to be. So people are going in and out. In and out would be the proper words there. In and out, the old brass wagon, etc. And coming up with those types of things. Spin around the old brass wagon. All those kinds of things that can stay really, really early elementary, right? Like just those beginning skills. But then as you get into like second grade, I teach kids like how to find their partner, right? So then they turn and face their partner and they can link arms and swing, oh swing the old brass wagon, or do-si-do the old brass wagon, or promenade all the old brass wagon. And what's great about the old brass wagon is because you can change the words and it's so easy to just plug whatever you want to. It's a really great place to add in that new movement vocabulary. So like if you're going to do heel toe polka from it's in one of the Amazon books, right?
Yep.
And you want to practice what that heel toe might look like, or you want to practice the first time they ever do a do-si-do, or you might want to practice the first time you do a swing, or the first time you do a promenade, or a thread the needle, or whatever it might be. You can do it with old brass wagon. And if you start that in kindergarten, it can be like, oh, we're going to learn something new with movement today. And then you just keep building on, and it can just kind of be like a standard in your classroom. So that was super fast, super furious, not a lot of scaffolding, because again, if your kids are used to being in a circle and you just want to try out that new vocabulary, this is a great song to do it with.
Yeah, and that's one of the beautiful things about singing games is like we don't need a caller for our community dance because we're not allowed to have a caller for our community dance.
Right.
So what are we going to do? We're going to put it in the text of the singing game, which means that Anne can look at the energy level, like you can look at the energy level of your class and you can be like, bounce in place, the old brass wagon, right? Instead
Go
of
to
like,
sleep, the old brass wagon. Yeah.
Sit down
Everybody
quietly.
Well, it's a great transition song for that reason, right?
So tiptoe to your spot, the old brass wagon. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. The other thing I was going to say, so brilliant to think about this as your movement vocabulary song, because several episodes ago you shared Willoughby. I think you don't. I'm thinking about like which version you shared, but yeah, Willoughby. And one of the things that we talked about in that conversation is kids need like a set of movements that they feel competent doing kind of at the drop of the hat in front of all their peers, because that's a big deal. And I'll have you, wrap up whatever else you want to add to this. But if you are doing that in kindergarten and kids feel comfortable moving from brass wagon to something like Willoughby, then by the time they get to my activity, which I'll share in a second, it's just like smooth as silk,
Yeah, you can literally call out what they're going to do next and they're good to go. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think that, again, if you look at the notation, like in Jill Trinka's volumes, and you see the instructions, and you're like, oh my gosh, skip, swing, circle, do-si-do, like all the different things, like you're not going to think, oh, that's a kindergarten song. But again, it's about making it work for your classroom. And so if all they can do is circle to the left, circle to the right, but you want a couple more verses, it's okay to do that. Just like touch the ground, you know what I mean? Like whatever it might be, hands up high, or whatever it might be, like an opposite exploration thing. Everybody slow, the old brass wagon. Everybody fast, the old brass wagon. I mean, everybody soft, quiet. It could go on and on and on and on. So.
And then this can pair nicely if you have like a fast wagon and a slow wagon, and then you go straight into bumping up and down.
Bump up, down in my little way. Yeah, love it.
Beautiful. Okay, that is awesome. Okay, well, let's go up to upper elementary. Let's imagine that kids have been in Anne's fabulous movement-based classroom, and they've been doing Old Brass Wagon, and then they got to do Willoughby, and they've been doing like walk and stop, and like all of this really, really, really crucial, critical stuff in kindergarten. Now, let's imagine they're in, I don't know, anywhere from second, third, fourth, fifth. This is just like a good tried and true game. We can stand in a circle, and I'm not saying anything, but we're just going to do some simultaneous imitation.
Mm.
I have headphones in. And I'm pointing in the circle. Noses and toeses go this way, and we just walk in a circle.
Now Victoria's walking in a circle.
So now we go all of that. Next. Oh my goodness gracious, that was crazy. And could you be my echo?
Mm-hmm.
You're turning in a circle in place. Other way. Noses and toes go this way, and now we're walking in a circle. My level 1 movement teacher was Laura Peterson, and she was the queen of like just singing the melody and having us interact in some way. And that's something that I really, really, really took away from her. Another thing that she would do very often is she would map out the movements with her fingers. So we would all just like sit in a circle and just follow her fingers, what her fingers were doing. And I was like, that is brilliant. So the just like vocable song as a way to teach the movement, that's definitely something that I got from her. Okay, so we've done this. We've done some echoing body percussion. How many verses do we have in this song? And do you hear any words that repeat? So now we're going to do the same thing while I sing the actual song. And just in case you don't know it, it is, come through in a hurry, come through in a hurry, come through in a hurry, Alabama gal. Turn in a circle. I don't know how, I don't know other way. I don't know how, Alabama gal. Noses and toes go this way. I'll show you how, I'll show you how, I'll show you how, Alabama gal. Keep walking. Ain't I rock candy, ain't I rock candy, ain't I rock candy, Alabama gal. Okay, so we go through all the things that we notice. Some things repeat. There are several different verses. Excellent. Now, instead of the turning 8 beats, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, then you turn 8 beats, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is the time where I would do an I do, we do, you do, or if I put on like a responsive classroom hat, it's like an interactive modeling thing. And that might have been something that, just depending on how this goes, you stop and think about how to turn in a circle by yourself, 8 counts, and then back the other way. We'll do like an interactive modeling thing for a right hand turn. So we're going to link arms with someone and turn 8 steps or 8 counts in one direction, and then we flip 8 steps back to our regular spots or back home. So doing that with me, students just watch, we talk about it. I do it with a student, we talk about it. And then we do it with an imaginary partner. And then when I'm ready, then it's just a whoosh, 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 whoosh. Students practice it on their own. And then we're ready for the actual long ways set. So if you're not familiar with this game, this is played not in a circle, even though we started in a circle so we could all see each other. This is played in a long ways set. And at the beginning, come through in a hurry, come through in a hurry. Everybody stands and they clap their hands. While the head pair of students, they're going to move down the long way set and then back up to their original home. And if this is like state, just like regular music class thing that we do, because of how much we've been doing Willoughby or something like that, that really, really, really sets students up not to feel super self-conscious and super like terrified of being the only one, you know, going down the aisle. So first verse, come through in a hurry, come through in a hurry. People do come through in a hurry. They go down to the foot, they come back up. Alabama gal, I don't know how. This is where we do our turn with your partner, turn with your partner, turn with your partner, and end up back home, which we've already done. We've already done it like 1,000,001 ways. So now we just do it in our long way set. And now it's time for peel the banana. In our circle scaffold, we were just walking in a circle, right? So I know to turn to my right shoulder and just follow the person in front of me. That's going to be the same exact thing. For this, I'm going to have everyone sit down, and I'm going to model how to do it with the people at the head of the line who turn and move down to the foot of the line, and then they make an arch and everyone walks back to their spots. And now we have a new head person and a new foot person. But the only thing that I have to do if I'm in the middle is turn and follow the person in front of me, which we've already scaffolded toward. So for that, that's the tricky part. And that's the fun part, is the peel the banana. So what I like to do is have everyone sit down except for the people who will be moving and leading the actual line, because everybody else, their only directions are stay in line. Right. It's the people at the front who, if they mess up, then you're like, well, I have a whole train of people like going to the gym now. Like, what do I do? You know? So that's my process for Alabama Gal. The body percussion, like echoey stuff, that stays in there. And that developed because I was always kind of waiting for a few stragglers to come get in line before you can start the beginning. Otherwise, you're going to have a car pile up. So students echoing me 8 beats, and then eventually that interlude moves to this half of the line, or like this side of the room is going to play 8 beats on body percussion, and their partner improvises a response back. So eventually, like the more we play it, it moves to an improvisation thing, but that's not authentic to how it would be.
No, I love that though, because that's how you need something like that in the classroom, right? I actually do the steps in like I play it a little differently than you do. I put the swing at the end, and that like kind of, and if you're not like back in time to swing, you're not back in time to swing. Like that's how I solve that problem. But I love what you're sharing, because I think that's such an important transition piece for any game where people need to catch up or figure out where they're going next, or just to give some breathing space. Like it might just be helpful to have that, depending on what's happening right before, right? Like if you have that peel the banana, or if you have like a swing, and you just always have those kids who want to take an extra couple turns and won't stop. Sometimes it's nice just to have that reset button. So I think that's a great strategy. Also, I love all of the scaffolding that you provide, because even though it's not like directly the types of movements that are going to happen in the long way set, it's still orienting like body awareness, right? In terms of facings, but they don't have to rely on anybody else. They just have to rely on themselves for the most part, but they also get that feedback by being in the circle and seeing what's going on. And I think so often if we see a book like in the we see a dance in a book, and we're like, oh, I'm going to teach this, and then we go step by step by step by step. It can be successful. It takes so much more teacher talk. It takes so much more teacher talk to make it successful when you just like dive right in. And I think that, I mean, it's hard on the podcast, right? Because we're just talking about it. And so it's hard to envision what this would be like in the classroom. But I'd wager to say that you are much like me, and that there's not a whole lot of talking happening, if any, right? Like you're just showing, and like those sound effects that you use, like whoosh, right? They'll know what to do, and then you can just go on with the next music making part of giving directions. Just like in Old Brass Wagon, I wouldn't be like, okay, now we're all going to hold hands, and then we're going to circle to the left. Is everybody ready? Okay, here we go. I don't do that. I just show circle to the left, the Old Brass Wagon, da, 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 da. Circle to the right, and just lead them, right? Like there's no need to talk about it. You just do it. And so the way that you scaffolded things made that possible. I mean, there is going to be that time again where you have everybody sit down and you show what that peel the banana looks like, because preemptively that's necessary. You're not just going to be like, I'm going to non-verbally like will this to happen, because it's tricky and they've never done it before and it's completely foreign to them, right? So loved it.
Okay, great. So now we've talked about singing games, and that kind of built off of how to teach a song just in general. And now we have a little bit more of a structured, is it a singing game? Is it a dance? Kind of yes, kind of no, kind of both, kind of neither. Yes, it is. And so now we can think about like a movement sequence, not necessarily a singing game, although it could be a singing game, and not necessarily a play party, although it could be a play party as these kind of lines merge together. So I think this sets us up well to talk about some movement sequences next week.
Yeah. So everybody stay tuned for that. Hopefully this is staying true to who we are as very scaffolded sequential people. But if you have not checked out, we mentioned this last couple episodes, if you have not checked out the website, if you have not gone onto YouTube, there's lots of different places that you can watch and listen. Our website, Teaching Music Tomorrow, is searchable. You can check things out there if you want to go back, because this is the 3rd season. We have like a good body of stuff in there. So go ahead and listen to us wherever you listen. Come check us out on YouTube, the website.
And we'll see you next week.